Welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, Brian McWilliams, where we're going to be making some jokes, laughing out at broken world, but also laying out some philosophy for the future, how we can fix this mess we're in and have a great time doing it all with a Mean Age Daydream. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome back to Mean Age Daydream. I'm, of course, Brian McWilliams on this 4th of July weekend. Hope all of you have made bad decisions already. Hopefully some of you have already pissed your neighbors off like mine have, setting off fireworks as you do at 11, 12, midnight, waking up people's children. God bless you, everyone. So, guys, at the top of the show, I want to remind you, subscribe button if you are just watching on Rumble. We're finally back on YouTube. Amazing. We're back on YouTube. They allowed us back on. So we'll see. Look at your watches. See how much longer it lasts. As we talk about, it is in fact election season. We will be talking about the Democrats, which means that YouTube will be ultra focused on taking us back down. So go ahead, hit the notify button already because we are shadow banned. You can follow us on Rumble and, of course, subscribe to the audio podcast. That is the way we actually make money from the show, other than our Patreon and local, where you can support us as well. All right, so getting into it, I was just thinking about how funny it is. We got 4th of July weekend. We're coming off of the first presidential debate, and we did a breakdown of that, by the way, with me and Rico and Odie on Meme Wars. Of course, John and Matt McKinley got into that on their show, so I don't really want to go too much into debate stuff. Too much time's gone by. I'll just say this very simply. Joe Biden looks old and decrepit. He looked like he was clinging to life. And Donald Trump looked full of piss and vinegar. Now, granted, a lot of that was bullshit. He looked like piss and vinegar and bullshit. Both of them were lying their asses off. But it was interesting to see that even on, I think it was CNN, they were fact-checking Biden in real time, listing all the things he had lied about. And you really didn't see that before. So the knives are out for Joe. Of course, you've also got the like the parent trap, the pussy trap. You've got the Joe Biden puss trap out there. She's clamped on that presidential dick, and she's not letting go. And it certainly seems that between Jill Biden and her puss clamp, and Hunter Biden and whatever sort of death grip he's got on Joe between his cocaine-induced seizures, they're not going to let him quit the race. I'm sure the Democratic Party, I'm sure Democratic operatives are pressuring Joe to drop out. Obviously, we've seen a number of different polls come out comparing Kamala Harris versus Trump versus Gavin Newsom versus yada, yada, yada. I think Harris, oddly enough, is the one that seems to have the most favorable matchup as far as polling goes. But Joe Biden doesn't want to drop out. And Jill Biden, of course, in a very Hillary Clinton type mold, she doesn't want him to drop out. She enjoys the power. She enjoys being forcing people to call her doctor. She enjoys the spotlight. And she certainly has Joe's ear. So at this point, even though it certainly looks like Joe Biden isn't up to the task, whether that's from Parkinson's, which is what I'm hearing some people say he has more than any sort of straightforward dementia, it seems like he's going to continue on. And even though the Democrats would like to replace him, at this point in time, there are issues between getting word out, selecting a different person, balloting, all this stuff, which may make it impossible. So, anywho, that's all I'll say about the debate, other than, you know, the handicap discussion where they're talking about their golf games literally was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Seeing that happen, that handicap conversation, it was clear that the handicap is really on America as a whole, having these two people up there. But I digress. If you want to see that, go back, watch Meme Wars to get a little bit more commentary. So, coming into this one, it was cracking me up. As I said, like, we're seeing all this reaction, all this BS back and forth. Oh, look, we've got lovely live watchers. Hello, gang. You're seeing the fallout from the debate, and you're seeing people say that, how can we allow this to move forward? How can we allow Joe to, supposedly become our president? Whatever people are pulling the strings, be damned. We can't allow Trump to do it because he's still a threat to democracy. And I'm just laughing because so many of the people calling Trump a threat to democracy are, of course, on the bandwagon for using lawfare against him, which we're going to get to momentarily, of course, with the new SCOTUS rulings, or I should say the SCOTUS kick it back down to a lower court, which is what their favorite thing to do is right now. But you're seeing these people who are happy to use lawfare against Trump, happy to try to jail him, happy to try to denounce everything and anything as the end of democracy. But yet, they're going to go celebrate 4th of July, and they've got Ukrainian flags in their profile pictures on Twitter. I just saw a recent poll that The Hill did, or at least The Hill had re-reported, talking about how they polled Ukrainian citizens as far as who they like better, Trump or Biden. Guess who won? Joe Biden. Guess who should care? Not Americans. I don't give a shit. I'll never give a shit about anything Ukrainians have to say or think about our president. And for a second, I was like, did Joe naturalize these Ukrainians? Is he just like, set in the ballots, let's go? You know, we got mail-in balloting, Ukraine, we're annexing that. That's a running joke, right? The 51st state of Ukraine. We certainly sent them enough money to do that. And no shit, they're going to like Biden more than they're going to like Trump. I mean, even though Trump still gave them all the weapons, he hasn't been out there stumping for how we have to continuously pay Ukraine. Even though he said he was complicit in getting them the last round of funding, let's not forget, pushing that through, right? Taking credit for that omnibus spending bill. Well, the Ukrainians, they still like old Grandpa Joe. Probably because they know a real corrupt politician when they see one coming from what has been largely recognized as the most completely corrupt, even more than Russia, the most completely corrupt state of, I think, any European nation. Actually, I think it's any worldwide nation, which is highly impressive considering they don't have any drug cartels that are partially running their countries. So, anyway, here's the rules. If you have a Ukrainian flag in your fucking profile and you're happy with us sending money over there and supporting this proxy war, you don't get to celebrate the 4th of July. That's it. You know why? Because the basis of this country was to get rid of a yoke of foreign influence, to get rid of foreign people that are ruling over you. And guess what? At this point in time, the United States has so much money outbound to so many foreign nations. We have so many different foreign entanglements, which goes against the basic tenets of what we're founded upon. You don't get to fucking have fun. You can clean up. You can pick up the thumbs. You can pick up the used red, white, and blue condoms that I'm putting out in a bowl in front of my house, that the homeless partake of them instead of just banging on the lawn. You're not allowed to take part because you don't get it. You don't get what this is about. Same thing if you are a passionate supporter of us sending Israel money and arms nonstop and not questioning anything or expecting anything, and you're happy with AIPAC and AIPAC's influence over our political environment and our policymaking, you also don't get to fucking celebrate 4th of July. If you celebrate anything that Barack Obama did in regards to the drone bombing of an American citizen, if you stayed quiet and didn't say shit, if you didn't call for a presidential prosecution there, if you didn't talk about the end of democracy at that point in time when Obama didn't get prosecuted for killing an American citizen extrajudiciously, you don't get to celebrate 4th of July. Instead, you could sit around, maybe read a book, maybe think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing with your life. And I could go on and on and on because, frankly, I think 75% of Americans shouldn't get to celebrate the 4th of July. Flat out. Maybe you still get the day off. Maybe you get to sit around drunk. But you don't get to partake in what it's actually about. And now, yes, I digress. The fact that it's very jingoistic to support this National Day of Reckoning for the comeuppance of the British. Take that, you British bastards. But still, I'll take it off. I'll have my fun. I'll eat my marshmallows and red, white, and blue Jell-O. I'll set off some fireworks. Okay. So let's move on to the title theme of this episode, which is what did I call it? Selective presidential immunity syndrome. And I think that similar to Trump derangement syndrome, you're really seeing this play out. Because one of the fantastic things about this latest SCOTUS ruling, and by the way, I understand it. If we're going to have a presidential immunity, then it should be extended to what Trump's going through right now. Absolutely, without a question of a fucking doubt. The fact that the Democrats are somehow crying foul here, and I saw some people saying the crime is legal, which is, again, one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. Makes me just fall down, laugh out loud, hilarious, being in L.A., looking at every Democrat-run city and how they've literally made crime legal in those places through different measures like Gavin King, shitbag nepotist Gavin Newsom here in California, really championing this bill that essentially enabled crime to be legal up to $950. Like if you're homeless or you're a gang of youths, I won't say what kind of youths, but let's just say youth gangs of a certain type, Well, completely now legal, or at least overlooked by the police departments and the prosecutors, if you go in and rob a store blind, as long as each of you doesn't take up to $950. And it's led to massive amounts of crime, to retail stores closing down. On top of that, you've got the issues with homeless people, open air drug markets that lead to other issues of private property damage, to public health crises. In Democrat cities, they have done their best to legalize crime. And yet, we're being told that because the SCOTUS decided in a 7-2 vote, if I'm remembering correctly, with Sotomayor and Justice Ketanji Brown, I think the two dumbest people in the Supreme Court right now by any measure, in dissent, which of course then Joe Biden, the dumbest president we've had, and Kamala Harris, AOC, vociferously defending that dissent. But you see that these people are saying that crime is now legal because of the Trump ruling. Now, when we get into it, should presidential immunity even be a thing? That's a hell of a fucking question. Because I understand the basic, thank you, Ovaltine Jenkins, I don't look hungover because I didn't drink last night. So the basic idea of presidential immunity is one that should perturb most people, right? It's upsetting. You go, okay, well, why should the president be immune if he's in this quote unquote official capacity? Why should he be immune from prosecution? On the other hand of that, you say, well, because of shit like what we're seeing, because the exact instance here of lawfare, the different branches are separated for a very good reason. You're supposed to have your executive branch, your legislative branch, and then, of course, you've got your judicial branch. And the three are supposed to have fairly equal powers. The problem is Congress, and this is majority Congress's fault, has given far too much power to the executive branch. I have a major issue with that. We see that play out in so many of the wars that go undeclared. We see it with this bullshit, unconstitutional bullshit of Joe Biden buying votes off by giving debt relief, which he's just frankly flat out not allowed to ever do. But yet, we're not seeing a lot of repercussions for that, are we? So I get the idea. You're trying to check each branch of power. I understand that aspect of presidential immunity, and I do think it's important that we have something in there to that level, right? The power of Congress is to impeach a president. That should be the more formal way of going about it and removing him from office, but I get why you need it. And in this specific instance, you're seeing the downside play out. You're seeing what can happen when you've got a deadlocked Congress and a judicial side of things with activist DAs, with activist judges in these different districts, like in New York City, for example, that are more than willing to go outside of what was even called a typical legal environment, right? We heard the term novel legal theories being applied in these cases in order to target Trump. And yes, you did have an example for Jack Smith in New York City, this hush money trial, which is absurd to begin with. You did have evidence from that drawn in during the under the auspices of investigations for January 6th, right? Which Trump has argued were completely legal, or at least legal under presidential immunity, because he was looking into election results and questioning people under the official guide of safeguarding an election. Now that, to me, as I discussed at the time and any time, speaking of January 6th, makes sense. I'm sorry, but if you're President Trump, now, as much as people might want to mind read and say, well, Trump knew what he was doing, he knew he lost, and he was trying to steal the election and take down our democracy. Okay, you're a fucking idiot. Donald Trump, not to give Donald Trump any outdue credit, Donald Trump is not somebody that I'm looking at and I'm going to just completely put out of my mind that he 100% doesn't believe that he won the election, that he doesn't think that there was fraud, especially in an era where we have mail-in voting, especially in an era where you've got ballot harvesting, and in a highly politicized race where half the country thought that he was an operative of the Russian government, which was, by the way, pushed forward by the deep state, by members of fucking Congress like Adam Schiff and Adam Schumer and everybody else. I'm sorry, why would Trump not believe that there was some sort of fraud in a very tight election when half the rules and half the decorum for the way we do our voting had been thrown out the window, and after there had been what was essentially an internal coup against him under the guise of his working for the Russians? Does any part of that make you think that he would simply believe that he was not fucked over in this election and just be like, yep, okie dokie, time to overthrow the government by questioning elections? Like, It's so fundamentally stupid. It makes you realize how either people have no idea. Well, we know they can't critical think. That's not a thing anymore. You can't critical think anymore. It's not taught. It's not encouraged. All of our media push it. All of our government narratives push an end to critical thinking. This is by intent. But is there no empathy? And I know empathy is not something, ironically, that I associate with the left class. In fact, I think more than anything, leftists have far less empathy from an honest perspective and more an ego-driven narcissism. But just a fucking few seconds of put yourself in his shoes and you understand exactly what happened and why. And I'm mind reading in a way too, but my mind reading for what Trump was doing actually corresponds with his actions. Therein lies the difference. So under the official guise of him going, this seems completely bonkers, let me look into it, I don't have any problem with him getting immunity. And if you're Jack Smith and you got a lot of the documents you're using to go after him from investigations tied to January 6th, which now he has immunity for, or at least a lower court judge is going to be deciding what he did or did not or should not have immunity for. Right? Because that's what all these Democrats are saying, that now a president can walk up and shoot somebody in the face in the middle of the street and get away with it because crime is legal. No, that's not what this is about. This is saying the lower court now has to go through and decide what should or should not count as an official act under this presumptive guide of him trying to safeguard elections. That's what this is. If you want to talk about whether or not a president can walk up and shoot somebody in the face, well, I don't think that's going to be listed under an official role as president, so they could be prosecuted. Like, that's the thing. We've gone in circles, and this is like Trump derangement syndrome, this selective presidential immunity syndrome. These people don't fucking seem to get just how many things presidents have gotten away with in previous years, previous decades. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of instances of a president that should have gone to prison for doing some sort of act. Again, Obama drone striking and killing 4 different American citizens and not getting put in jail is a great example. It is the greatest example because it's also from this amazing, man built of solid light that the left likes to point to, Barack Obama. He did that. You didn't have a problem with it. Yet, when Donald Trump doesn't go to jail for hush money payments, or doesn't go to jail because of looking into election interference, and it's the most dubious of dubious claims, by the way, and most people on the left don't even know what they're talking about when they talk about January 6th. They still think he somehow was responsible. And CNN, I think, even in the debate, made it seem that he was responsible for inciting people on January 6th when he explicitly told them not to. But the selective emphasis on Donald Trump compared to these other people is despicable. And on top of that, I just have to laugh in general at people getting upset about this presidential immunity, because don't you people understand that the official acts of office are ones that we only find out about 10 years later anyway, if we ever find out. The amount of murder, theft, fraud that has gone on by presidential decree in unofficial means, aka classified documents, aka black ops, Delta Force, whatever you want to call it, unannounced coups through the CIA. You're talking about, like I said before, thousands of crimes that have gone unprosecuted, unknown about, that are not going to be in any way ever revealed to the American population. And if they are, it's going to be well after these presidents are dead. So shut the fuck up. I mean, it's literally like it's one of these things. Now you have an opinion on it? You didn't have an opinion on it at any other point in time in your life. But now, because it's a guy that you don't like and a guy that you thought you got, right? Let's not forget that's what this is about. We got him. Shit, we don't got him anymore. That's what this is about. This is not about democracy. This is not about presidential immunity. This is not about crime being legal. This is about a guy they thought they had slipping the noose. Period. And anybody that's going to argue against that is simply a person that's fucking lying. So there's my diatribe on selective presidential immunity syndrome. Let's talk a little bit about Chevron too, while we're talking about SCOTUS decisions. They handed down a lot. It was like rapid fire, just crazy. But the one that's I think going to be pretty interesting to watch is, of course, the Chevron decision. Now, the Chevron decision, again, this is a few days old. I'll make it very brief. Was a condition that's put in where the government essentially was given deference in regards to agencies that were created outside of Congress, right? These are more like sub-agencies. These are task force agencies like the ATF, right? An example like the ATF, labeling whatever they want, a piece of plastic, a gun, a 3D modeled diagram, right? Oh, gun, can't do it, right? That's an example of an ATF overstepping its regulatory boundaries. But they created so many of these different agencies that then were essentially given, because of this initial Chevron decision, they were essentially given the powers of enforcement, of fining, of raiding. There's a reason why so many different agencies all of a sudden were buying up ammunition and tanks. I mean, for Christ's sake, like the forestry department, the IRS. But the idea that all these agencies had not only regulatory oversight, but as I said, the ability to fine, to hold things up, to like crypto is a great example with the SEC, giving them far too much power outside of what Congress had ever deigned. And it expanded so fast and so frequently, especially under Democrats. But again, not put the weight of the blame fully on Democrats. This is both sides of the coin. I guess Trump, to his credit, one of the few things he did was rein in some of the regulatory state, or the administrative state, whatever you want to call it. But this latest judgment, or let's say a rollback of the judgment, is in the effort to rein in the administrative state. Now, how this is all going to work out, what it's going to look like, I don't even know. Because you're talking about now completely kind of hitting the reset button on what a lot of these agencies can do. It's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the regulatory state's numbers, if that's going to mean a massive rollback, which would be fantastic. Afuera! Fucking, I hope it's a Javier style, just fire 50% of everybody that works for every single regulatory agency in the United States of America. That would be amazing to start off with. But I don't know how it's going to roll back. Because I think at this point, it's going to be difficult without Congress sitting down and writing a very, very specific set of legislative laws to oversee what different regulatory agencies can and can't do, which, by the way, was what they're supposed to do in the first place. Let's not forget, this is an abdication of responsibility by Congress. Typical is what has continued to happen is abdication of responsibility from Congress. Let's not forget, they don't even read bills anymore. But it would take them really sitting down and going through and writing specifics. I don't think they're going to do it. So it might be a little bit more wild, wild west. And I'm going to keep tabs on this. I mean, I know we got Craig, one of our lawyers watching here. Maybe he'll have a better opinion on it than I will, but I'm going to look into it more. The Chevron decision just dropped, so I haven't seen too much written on exactly how this is going to shake out and what this, what the new skeletal state will look like. But it's going to be something fascinating to track. Either way, I think it's a fantastic thing. I think that there's, again, you're looking at an American economy that has been shackled by the regulatory state. You're looking at businesses that are shackled by the regulatory state and either operate with the regulatory agencies in a crony capitalist model, which is what we see far too much of when it comes to large companies, or you're looking at upstart businesses that are just being beaten to all shit because they're fighting against a regulatory agency that is not their friend and can create nebulous laws. Laws. I should put that in the air quotes. They're not laws. That's the whole point of this thing. They're not fucking laws. They were basically delivered as laws to these companies. These regulatory agencies would just make up rules. In the example of Bitcoin, I saw distinctly a lot of the Bitcoin people talking about this, saying, thank God, because dealing with the SEC, you try to get into compliance with them, and then they go, oh, you're not in compliance. And you go, I don't get what you want from me. It's like being in an abusive relationship. I don't know what you want, but you have to keep coming back to them again and again because at the end of the day, you have to live in their house, right? That's essentially what this was. So now, because Chevron has been overturned, the companies that have been abused can finally escape the house where they're being beaten and find shelter somewhere else. The question is what that temporary shelter is going to look like as this all gets figured out. So I think that's the best breakdown. I think the abused wife metaphor for what the state of the American economy has been might be the best metaphor ever created. So you're welcome for that. Please do use that. Okay, a couple of things. I forgot to mention this tying into the presidential immunity syndrome, but AOC, in classic AOC fashion, went on a diatribe. This is the same woman who, of course, was twerking, booty dancing to get reelected in her campaign in one of the cringiest moments ever. But Kamala Harris is going to say, hold my beer in a second. But AOC had gone out and said, well, you know what? This isn't a direct attack on our democracy, as they all do. And she had said that she was going to file impeachment papers for the Supreme Court. Now, good luck with all that. Good luck impeaching the Supreme Court. Number one, just like packing the court, that would be unbelievably unpopular. I don't care how many Democrats out there might be pissed off, how many of them have Trump derangement syndrome and are angry their guy slipped the noose here. Packing the court is incredibly unpopular. Impeaching justices over this rule, and again, would be easily shown to have been abused and held up by numerous other presidents before this nonsense. Trying to impeach Supreme Court justices over this will make AOC look like the biggest partisan psychopath ever. I think even within now in her district in Brooklyn and what is it, the Bronx and Queens maybe. I know who lives there now. It's a lot of hipsters and of course a lot of immigrants, but I think the hipsters are probably winning. So I don't know if her district will get upset about it, but I think on a national stage, she will be called a buffoon and an idiot. It'll be unbelievably unpopular. There's just no way. But the fact that she thinks that she's winning public perception by voicing this shows you how deranged she is. And for that part, how deranged anybody that kind of gets on the same bandwagon of the SCOTUS is poisoned. They have to be torn down. We have to pack the courts. These are not hard decisions. I mean, the fact that it was 7-2 shows you where things are at. That if it was such a hard decision, it would have been really tight. It wasn't. It simply wasn't even a difficult thing. It's similar to, God, what was the 9-0 decision they handed down recently? Oh, God, I'm forgetting what it was. But it was, again, so lopsidedly obvious. And it was another one that Democrats were just aghast about. And you go, why? To anybody with a simple through line in their brain can put A plus B together and understand how we got to C and how this doesn't even make sense to try to take down. And then you've got the AOCs of the world out there trying to rally their base around destroying a giant portion of the three branches of our government, right? You think about what that would mean. Number one, this is an idiotic thing to do anyway, because presuming that Trump does win, and at this point, he is very much up on Joe Biden, especially after the debate formats. Presuming Trump wins, and you try to impeach these people, how quickly do you think that process happens? It's not going to happen while Joe's still in office, I can tell you that much. Ain't going to come together that quickly. So, who are you going to impeach? Are you going to impeach only the conservative judges? Okay, then Trump gets to come into office and put brand new young conservative judges in there. So you've essentially completely fucked yourself because now you've got brand new judges and Trump could put in even more conservative judges because there's some like Roberts in there that I don't think even should count as a conservative. Alito kind of goes back and forth sometimes. You can really stack the court in your favor now if you only impeach the judges that you don't like, AOC. Like, none of this has been thought through, but don't go worry, guys. She's going to stick to it. She's going to put these documents in. God, what a fucking idiot. All right, let me see. What else I got to talk about here? A couple more things. France. Let's go to France, and then we'll finish up with going to Kamala Harris and Kringemala Harris, because holy hot damn, has she had a rough few days, guys. But before that, let's talk really quick about France, because, of course, France just went through a new round of elections. It looks like Marine Le Pen and what has been called her alt-right or far-right party is, in fact, going to be leading France. She won her reelection personally as a PM very handily. They now, last I saw, had 34% of the vote for her party. And that's, there's more rounds to come, but it seems like it's a fait accompli. And naturally, what do you see happen? Well, you see people like Antifa and other leftist dickheads going and destroying property in the streets. Guess how that's going to work out as far as solidifying support for Marine Le Pen? Anybody want to think about how that's going to happen? Oh, that's right. It's going to 100% get more people on her side. The people that did cast votes for her side are going to now demand more control, more police, more policies that lock down on, let's say, mass immigration, mass whatever, because the people that are out there rioting are the people that came in for mass immigration and the leftist psychopaths, or, what do they call Antifa out there? La Antifa. So these people go out and riot. You now have a movement that has been cemented in France and in numerous other European countries. The obvious answer to all of this is that the globalist instincts of the elite class that had been put into place, the Macrons of the world, the Trudeaus of the world, the Gavin Newsoms of the world, these policies I think, to be honest, I thank social media and cell phones and all this other shit for this, and Twitter becoming X and losing its definitive censorship bias towards the left. You're seeing people be able to share in every nation the failures of these ultra-leftist global policies, right? The failure of policies that are 100% designed to destroy your culture, destroy your infrastructure, to undermine the ability for people to hold and host communities of their own, the ability to hold government accountable, especially in Europe, right? Because you've got the European Union overtaking a lot of these independent nations or previously independent nations. You're seeing the comeuppance. Now, what's great to see is that it started with a trickle. You started mostly in like the Nordic nations who saw the effects of mass immigration severely. Like, again, your Swedens with the rape numbers just skyrocketing, the violence skyrocketing, the gangs skyrocketing in what was essentially a monoculture. Now you're seeing that play in all of the European countries. Now, is it too soon to say the European Union is going to break up? I don't know if it is. In truth, I might be predicting right now in the show that within the next 5 years, you're going to see the EU break up. The question on whether or not the EU breaks up is if the people that are on the side of this is fucked up, we need to get our culture back, we need to get our cities safe again, we need to stop importing all of these people who want nothing to do with us, zero interest in becoming acculturated, zero interest in in finding jobs immediately, and we don't even have jobs to give them immediately, so they're just living off the taxpayer dole. And in cities and states where crime, again, has essentially been legalized in these democratic establishments. Because you've seen the videos of police simply allowing crime to happen in front of them, shoplifting, violence. I mean, here in LA, we have a massive issue with people just ripping, taking over streets, doing wheelies, massive hordes of people. The cops just sitting there doing nothing. The downside of this that these leftists don't understand, and I've said this in regards to our own border situation, the downside of this, guys, is that the first wave here that's happening with these right parties coming in, that's going to be a corrective wave. The problem is that if it doesn't correct things quickly enough, you're going to have people call for authoritarianism. If things continue to worsen, if things continue to go down the path of riots, the path of violence, the path of now, you've got cultural / tiny race wars or immigrant versus natural population wars going on, you are going to then see the people that are citizens demand the military get involved, demand like Trump has said, I'm going to deport everybody. So, and again, I'm not verbatim, he didn't really say that, but the idea behind it is people will call for authoritarianism. That's what I'm saying the downside is to an open borders type of policy when you don't have an open borders society set up to handle that. When you've got the legal citizens paying for everything that are getting fucked by every policy here, and they're just seeing more and more immigrants come in that are, not, like I saw an example in Paris. I'm going to Paris in a few weeks, so I'll be able to report back on this. I'm going for the Olympics. I've seen the videos that people are posting from Paris of the masses amount of these African or, Muslim immigrants that have been airdropped in that are now just street people everywhere in Paris, and it just looks like a third world country has been imported to Paris, France, which is supposedly one of the most beautiful cities on earth. So I've been told. I will let you know if that's true. You're going to see calls for a violent retribution if this doesn't stop, reverse course, and if something isn't done to either deport these people or force a culturalization. You know, and forced culturalization, I don't mean like you go in and you sit them down North Korea style or China with the Uyghurs, and you're going to, you know, hold their eyeballs open like in A Clockwork Orange and somehow teach them English or French or whatever it might be. When I mean forced culturalization, I'm talking about the old school style of if you want a job, you need to acculturate. If you want to be a member of a community, you need to acculturate. We're not going to simply provide you sustenance, food, housing, whatever it might be, so that you can sit there and not do fucking jack to actually become part of a society, which is exactly what has happened. That is exactly what has happened with all of these leftist motives and leftist programs. So the slower that happens, the more people will drift to authoritarianism because they want their fucking country back. They want their culture back. They want normalcy. And that's where we're at. I mean, it's funny because it's the old phrase, like, what is it? Weak men make hard times. Well, the weak men have made hard times. And the liberal white women have made hard times. The weakest of men, right? Because all the liberal white women, they don't believe in gender anymore. So we can essentially call liberal white women who have created this problem and all these shit policies and the globalists up top that, of course, are the weakest of weak men that have the most amount of money. Well, they have made very hard times. And the cycle continues, right? What is it? The fourth turning? No, we're in the fourth turning. All right, last thing. Oh, Kamala Harris. Let me just play this video for you. Now, this is after Kamala Harris had gotten into a very publicized spat with Elon Musk because Elon had fact-checked her because she had said that Donald Trump was going to eradicate all abortions and make them illegal. Now, this is a talking point that has made me furious for a long time. Number one, Donald Trump is really a liberal, so I don't think that he's ever going to have a huge problem trying to nationally ban abortion anyway. He said and reiterated in the debate, it's a state's issue now, which is what it should have been. No, there was no constitutional right to abortion until a very, very questionable from any legal scholarship point of view. Questionable decision was made to legalize it on a federal level. That has now been put back to the states. Fine. Donald Trump has gone out of his way numerous times to say he would never back a federal abortion ban. And Kamala Harris tweeted this out. She got immediately community notes checked where 50 different people had said, this is bullshit. You know what you're talking about. And then Elon Musk had publicly said, you know what the beautiful thing about X is? Politicians can't lie in here anymore. Now, of course they can, but the community notes has been one of the most effective fact-checking tools, one of the most effective tools to immediately, I mean, virtually immediately, provide a counterbalance and a countermeasure to flat out political lies. And it's been glorious to see. I mean, honestly and truly, X has become, I think by any measure, the platform of truth. Doesn't mean you can't lie on it because you can lie anywhere. But I think because of that real-time fact-checking, because of the lack of overarching censorship. And yes, I do know there is still some censorship out there. I know people had some accounts get taken off recently. I think those have been returned back. But it becomes a place where everyone is going because they know they can have that open dialogue and because they know they're going to get at least some balance in regards to the lies. So awesome to see her get slapped down. But following this was posted by Megan Murphy. Kamala Harris paid for, or should I say Biden-Harris paid for what I can only call the most cringy piece of shit ever aired. And this aired on Comedy Central. Let me play this for you. Hold on. It's, I think, supposed to be a quote-unquote live conversation between Kamala Harris and some pretty black actress. I've seen her before. I couldn't tell you her name for the fucking life of me. But let's just play it. It's less than a minute. And if you can tell me a single person who is going to be impressed, intrigued, or find Kamala Harris in any way more engaging or likable after this, I'll give you $50. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it exists.
No, Taraji. Now, you know I wouldn't do that.
This is for the BET
Especially not
Awards.
to a fellow bison. The real, ain't you? You know. So what's on your mind?
Oh, Madam VP Harris, I'm worried about the election. Women's reproductive rights are on the line. Our Supreme Court is on the line. Our basic freedoms are being
How is the
tested,
Supreme Court on
Madam
the
VP. I know you've been traveling across the country. What are you hearing?
Yeah, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you,
Yeah, you're out
right,
in the streets,
Taraji.
Kamala.
There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and
Yeah.
equality. But these
Now, for those of you that aren't watching this live on YouTube or Rumble, this is the worst produced piece of shit I've ever seen. It's got Kamala Harris pretending to talk into a cell phone in a conversation with this black actress who's backstage at the BET Awards. And I'm guessing this is actually part of the broadcast. I don't even know. I don't think you're allowed to initially program in political campaigning during the award show, but I could be wrong. So I'm guessing this is just running during a skit. But it's got Kamala Harris pretending to talk into a phone, and she's doing her most earnest faces into the phone, which, by the way, makes it look completely fake. I mean, if you're going to do something like this, right? I work in public relations. I work with advertising agencies. I work in marketing. I'm working with the Libertarian Party right now to create ads right now that people can use. I'll tell you what we're not going to do. We're not going to try to look like you're out there in those streets and earnestly use your eyebrows expressively during a very heartfelt conversation about what you're hearing with an actress that happens to be calling you backstage from the BET Awards. This is fucking retarded. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. Nobody on earth is watching this and going, God, that Kamala Harris, she's so down to earth, man. I just want to have a white wine with her. I'm not even going to say beer. I know she does. Well, maybe she drinks Red Stripe, right? Because, again, she's Jamaican, not African-American. All right, let's finish up this piece of garbage.
extremists, as they say, they not like us.
They not.
They not like us, guys.
attack
Remember,
on our
if you're going to pander, make sure to do it in Ebonics. That, I can't stress how important that is. If you're going to pander, it's Ebonics time.
fundamental freedoms. The freedom to vote.
Yep.
The freedom to love who you love, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom for a woman to make decisions about her own body.
Kamala's
not
covering her
having
neck up with a
government
scarf,
tell
by
her
the way.
what to
She's
do.
got old lady neck now.
No, Taraji. Now, you know I wouldn't do that, especially not to a fellow bison.
Wait a minute. What happened? Hold on. It skipped backwards. Maybe this isn't the whole clip.
Be safe from gun violence, the freedom for a woman to make decisions about her own body, not having her government tell her.
Okay, so this must not be the whole clip, which is probably beneficial. That's probably something that we should all be thankful for. I mean, goddamn, man. There are no words. There are no words. Everything about the Biden campaign, there are no words for how puzzlingly bad they are at their job. They haven't put out a single thing that's been inspirational, that's been even relatable. They don't seem to understand where the country is at. They don't seem to understand how unlikable their candidates are. To put forth something like this for Kamala Harris, right, I think makes her look even less like somebody black people should authentically think represents them. I mean, Jesus Christ. That the part I paused it on, the Ebonics part of that, was so random, so out of place. As was we out here in these streets. What? Look, if you're going to pretend to be one of the regular people, which you are not and haven't been since you fucked your way into office by banging Mayor Willie Brown in San Francisco, if you're going to pretend that you're one of these people, maybe do it throughout. Maybe try to be more natural. You can't be campaigning into a fucking phone because obviously this is pre-recorded. It's not like they're doing it in real time. You got to be either a better actress or just give it up and just be a robotic dipshit, Kamala Harris, or lean into your strength, being an unlikable psychopath. You know, at least there's unlikable psychopaths watching the BET Awards that'll be like, that's my girl. That's my bitch. Nobody watching this thought that Kamala Harris was their bitch. Not one person. But I'm your bitch. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Thanks for watching. Remember, do please subscribe to the podcast. If you'd like to, you can support us on Patreon or on Locals. Get my Good Morning Fuckhead rants. get the, again, forthcoming Do Nothing Man episode, which apologies, I'm trying to get that done. And also much more. So that's it. Thanks, guys. Happy 4th of July from me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty Network, and from Mean Age Daydream. Keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that beautiful ray gun that is completely legal under our Second Amendment laws to my head. All right, later.